help in the afterlife only through love. Ignorance is the greatest obstacle. Teachings in Love and Patience. Own Will. Writings. BD0679 from November 23, 1938, taken from book number 14. Countless beings would be lost if love did not come to their aid. It constantly endeavors to bring up the souls languishing there from the deepest darkness and therefore has a wide field of work. Everything that is apostate from God is seized by love in order to bring about union with God, even if it takes an infinitely long time. This beginning is all the more difficult as the opposing power also does everything in its power to prevent the redemption of the soul, but the success of love is nevertheless to be hoped for because the power of love is incomparably stronger than that of hatred and enmity. However, the souls will have to undergo difficult tests of will, as they did not pass them on earth and will now have to provide far more difficult proof of their good will in the beyond. Thus, only the will be decisive again in the beyond and the soul will be supported. Recognizing the uselessness of its earthly life, the soul now becomes aware of its task and tries to free itself from its oppressive situation. Once it has broken through the deepest night of the spirit, it is infinitely grateful for every help granted to it in love. But without love her endeavors in the afterlife would be in vain, for it is unable to do anything on its own. Where loving spiritual beings come to meet it, again sent by God's love and mercy, an ascent into regions of light is also possible there, but only love ever brings about such, and love will certainly also be granted to a willing soul which recognizes and repents of its situation, since all work in the beyond is a continued activity of love. Yet difficulties still often arise due to the ignorance of souls in need of redemption. Anyone who was already spiritually active in earthly life has a certain school behind him which taught him the essentials and what is necessary for his soul's salvation. But those souls are often without the slightest knowledge. They must first have a certain maturity before they can even understand their situation and their nature in relation to the eternal deity. And this ignorance is the greatest obstacle on the path to the light in the beyond. These souls must be instructed in love and patience in exactly the same way until they resolve of their own accord to integrate themselves into the divine order and, for their part, to do everything that can lead them upwards. And there are also such differently receptive beings. Often everything offered to them in the way of instruction is brusquely rejected, and love must patiently endeavor to open up the knowledge of spiritual things to such a soul. The more mature souls follow this laborious beginning with great interest and likewise look for ways to support the endeavors of the enlightened spiritual beings. The resistance of the souls is often so great that again only the greatest poverty in a desolate situation can have a meaning-changing effect on the soul, and therefore such souls create their state of suffering themselves through their persistent rejection of the truth from enlightened heights. But just as the same diversity of people can be recognized on earth, so it is also in the beyond. The more willing a being is, the easier it achieves inner liberation, whereas the stubborn and overly cunning worldly wise often allow a long time to pass before they are prepared to accept the wisdom from the heavens. One's own will is always an obstacle, only the subordination of the will to the divine will brings freedom of spirit. All such work in the beyond requires immense patience and therefore finds valuable support in your spiritual activity, for the souls in the beyond follow this extraordinary connection from there to earth with great interest, and their thinking is constantly stimulated by it so that they try to give themselves an explanation and thereby come much closer to the truth. Every reception is at the same time a help to the ignorant souls who turn to your activity in great numbers and thus find the path of realization sooner. Amen.